This episode of Bulletproof Cash Flow is brought to you by Realty Dynamics. Learn how people like you can build substantial passive income while creating wealth for the long term through real estate investing. Visit rdyne.com. That's RDYNE.com.
It is always 100% about communication and how you're communicating the information. So it has to be succinct, concise, and also has to come early. Like if it's at the very last minute and they're like, well, why didn't you tell me about this earlier? You've got a problem there. We're seeing a lot of, operators going into foreclosure. They're not even communicating that to their investors until like the day before the judgment, right? And so that's an issue. You have to be, I think the earlier, not too early, of course, you don't want to cause too much alarm, but the right moment to communicate with the investors is extremely critical.
Working because you want to, not because you have to, is financial freedom. And we want to help you create that. Welcome to the Bulletproof Cash Flow Show. We're going to teach you how to achieve lifetime financial freedom through real estate investment. Your host is a multifamily syndicator and property developer. He's done deals reaching into the hundreds of millions of dollars. You'll hear from experts in all aspects of real estate investment, finance, development, and management. Everything you need is right here. This is the Bulletproof Cash Flow Show. And this is your host, Augustino Pintus.
Hey everyone, it's Augustino. For many people out there, escaping the 9-to-5 is what many people dream about, to imagine the possibilities of getting into real estate. Now, if you're able to support your family and support your dreams just by doing real estate and really get that time so you can focus on the things and the people you care about most, that changes your whole life. Now, our next guest knows all about this. She was able to do this in 24 months, but certainly wasn't easy. It took a lot of hard work. She started her professional career as an R&D food scientist working on a Fortune 500 company. Now, 13 years afterwards, she realized the freedom of real estate and bought into her first deal. So she and her family pursued that direction of real estate. And then to the point that she actually started doing it in 2020, full time. So she is an active general partner in over 1,000 units in the Southeast and invests as a limited partner in various multifamily and mobile home park deals. Now, with all that, I'd like to welcome Christine Shu to the show. Christine, thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Agostino. It's so great to be here, and I'm excited for our conversation.
Yes. Me too. Now, guys, if you like what Christine has to say, you can reach her via her contact page at noblivest.com. We'll include a link in the description, okay? All right, Christine, go ahead and tell listeners a little bit about your journey. How'd you get started in all this? And tell us about some of the capital raising stuff you're also doing today.
Yes, absolutely. So back in, I want to say 2019, I was so fed up with my W-2. And we were just talking about, it's just like a whole different thing. I feel like if your personality is good for W-2, great, it's good for you. But for us, we're entrepreneurs and investors. We're kind of wired a little bit differently. So I never really fit into the W-2 mold. And after over a decade, it just took a long time for me to figure that out and take action. Because after every job move, I would still get back into the same routine of not really enjoying what I do. And so back in 2019, 2020, that's when I had kids. I had young kids to also kind of prioritize in my life. I decided to kind of look into ways to replace my income. So, I could be a stay-at-home mom, but I wanted to replace my income with something else that would free up my time. And so I pinpointed investing in real estate because really that's the best vehicle to allow you passive income at the end of the day. It's still work, but it's not the same kind of work where you have to show up every day and work 10 hours. It's like you do a lot of work, but then you're building a machine that generates the income. So I decided to go into real estate. I didn't know what to focus on at that point. So I kind of pinpointed on the BRRRR strategy, which stands for buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and repeat. And I started small because I wanted to really learn the entire process on my own and really kind of mitigate my risk a little bit. So I invested in Philadelphia. So I'm located in New York. Did the burst strategy a few times and said, okay, this is a lot of work for not a lot of reward. Like truly a lot of work. And even having to deal with, a lot of the problems that come up with being a landlord. So then I moved my direction over to multifamily and syndications. At that time, I had met someone who is now my business partner at Noblivest, who introduced me into this concept that, yes, you can actually invest in real estate without having to do all the work and still make passive income and grow your money. So it's great for people who have jobs, who, have other things that they're focusing on. They don't have time to be a landlord and deal with the tenants, toilets, and termites. Just put your money into real estate, get all those tax benefits. So you don't get those benefits with investing in the stock market or really that many different asset types. But really, real estate has a lot of benefits, not just from an income perspective and a generational wealth, but also tax. So I'm like, okay, this sounds good, like a good fit for me. Did the burst strategy, too slow, went into multifamily, and then I didn't have a lot of experience. So I felt like I had a lot of contacts and a network of people around me that were interested in what I was doing. So I kind of got my foot in the door by partnering as a equity partner, a capital partner, and raise some fund into deals with people that I trust and know in the industry. So that was kind of my journey.
That's actually very interesting because for many people that come to our coaching programs, for instance, one thing that I always try to figure out for that individual is what is their superpower, right? Mm-hmm. Some people are great operators. Some people can source deals because they have the relationships with brokers. Other people are great at handling the financials, the back office. In your case, though, you were a capital raiser. And I think you have, I believe anyway, you have a very distinct plus because of your location, New York, right? New York, there's a lot of money there looking to escape New York, or New York State, right?
Exactly.
So tell us a little bit about that. So how'd you figure that out? How'd you figure out what your superpower was? I think that's one of the things that many people don't even think about. It's funny because you and I both know we're already on the other side of that fear, right? So we kind of already figured that part out. I mean, I'm not saying we figured it all out. There's plenty of places to go after this. However, in your case, it sounds like it took a little bit of stumbling to figure out that capital raising was your bag, right?
Absolutely. It took some time for me to really understand that. But I feel like there are other forces telling me. Like, I didn't go out to find it. People were asking me all these questions about my real estate investing journey because they saw my transition from being a W-2 into investing in real estate. And I had a little bit of that experience doing my own deals, the smaller deals. And people were just very curious. And it always ended up, the conversation went towards, well, how can I invest in real estate? It looks like it's really hard. And I'm like, yes, it is. It's hard. It's not an easy thing to do. You really have to commit yourself to it. But they're like, well, I still want to do it, but how do I do it? So then the conversation shifts to, okay, well, here's an opportunity I have for you. I'm investing into bigger deals now, and syndications is basically group investing. Everyone pools their resources together. We have people that do the work and people that just put in their money. And you can still invest in real estate that way and still get the full benefits of real estate in itself as an asset class. And they get so intrigued by that. They're like, wow, I had no idea. And so I had a few of these conversations, actually several, as I was transitioning. And I'm like, okay, this is kind of the forces telling me that maybe I have an opportunity here to help bring capital into deals because I'm that link into kind of saying, okay, this is a possibility. And also I love educating people about real estate. I could talk about real estate all day long. And I know you and we already started talking, like most of our time was just chatting about real estate. Like I could talk about and even educate people about real estate all day long because I've seen the benefits of it. I'm so passionate about it. Like I didn't feel this passionate about my work before, but now it's like, it's amazing. And so it's not really just raising money. It's also educating people of the opportunities that they just don't know about. And that's something that I love to do. And I think that is the best way to actually convert your leads when you are raising capital is coming at a different perspective. It's not about the money. It's about the opportunities and really what it could bring for that individual and their family.
Yeah. I mean, if I would have known what I know now when I was working in corporate, my life would have been completely different. I think that for many people out there, though, ever ask yourself if you were 5 years into your corporate job and someone told you about real estate, would you have been willing to listen? It's like, how much pain would you have to be in? And maybe at that point, maybe you weren't. I know I wasn't. I mean, I was fat, dumb, and happy, making all this money, living in my house, driving around in my fancy car. It's kind of like people don't realize it until, I think to your point, it took a job loss, or it took finally getting sick of it before you're making the leap out, right? That's when you really started. It sounds like, anyways, you really were looking for an exit. And
Right.
it's like, for many people, I still urge them the same way you do, is that you want to get an early start on this. Even if you're investing passively in deals, just to get the exposure to what's out there, right? Because it's just, doing the real estate thing is phenomenal once you understand it.
Exactly.
Right? And of
it's
course,
a very pouveful tool.
Yeah, and getting into the right deals too. I mean, that's part of it, right? Because getting into the wrong deals will certainly burn you.
Yes.
Investing with the
Yes.
right person. Investing with the right person. Yeah. How do you explain the syndication model to new folks that they want to invest, they don't understand how it is? So when you open that up, how do you explain it?
Yes. So, I mean, in essence, it's group investing. I feel like most people, they look at all these big commercial buildings, even these big multifamily buildings, and they just assume it's like hedge funds or private equity, like, the up there's type of people. But it's really just saying, no, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's just a group of people like you and I coming together and buying that. And they don't think that's even a possibility.
Right.
I'm like, yes, it is a possibility. So it's like pulling that veil over and saying, this could be yours. You could be a partial owner of this type of asset. I think that really helps. And also kind of pinpointing on the why. Everyone has a different why as to why they do what they do. And so really helping people kind of dig deep into why. A lot of people are high income earners. They make a lot of money and they're spending a lot. But then it's like, well, what's next? I feel like as human beings, we're always asking what's next, right? You can get to that high level and you can buy all the things that you want in the world. And I think especially when people start to have children and families, their perspective changes a little bit. It becomes more legacy focused.
Yeah.
And really how to teach the kids about, a better future ahead. And so then also they look at themselves. I think a lot of people I talk with, they're burnt out from working their W-2s, right? They're like, I kind of like what I do. This is comfortable. I'm making good money, but I don't want to do this forever. Like, away with the old thinking that it's a 35 to 40 year career, right? That you don't have to do that anymore. You can maybe have a career up to maybe age 55 and decide you want to retire and just enjoy life earlier. So it's really opening up, these conversations and possibilities. I think focusing on kind of the main intention of the core, right? People's core intentions and what their fundamentals of thinking is really kind of how we drive our conversations, or I drive my conversations when it comes to raising capital.
Yeah, no, I like that. I told you I was at an event this past weekend, and the panel, there's several speakers in a panel, and they were talking about syndication, LP, GP, ROI, NOI, all this other stuff. And the audience, I can see the audience had no idea what they're talking about. Yeah, and I think that when you're talking to someone that has never done this before, couldn't even spell syndication before they met you, breaking it all the way down to the fundamental level is absolutely critical to at least starting the discussion to one day win them over. Because it isn't going to take one discussion, 2, 3, 4. It might take 15, 20 discussions in a year of time before you actually convert that person and actually get them in as an investor, for many people, right? So, I mean, that's one of the things that we really have to do in this game anyway when you're raising money is that you have to your point, start the education early so people associate you with real estate as a trusted individual that knows what they're talking about. right?
Exactly. And I might add also, I am an LP in very many deals, and I am very kind of aggressively placing money as an LP. I'm also a GP and a fund manager, but I always make it a point to have skin in the game as an LP so that I'm investing alongside of my investors. And so that is another thing that really also helps when raising capital. I know plenty of people who just raise capital to raise capital, but they don't put their own money in. But I feel like when investors know that you are with them along the way, they know your values and that you're riding along with them, that really makes a very big difference, I feel.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. We invest in all of our deals too. As a matter of fact, we just opened up our second fund for the net lease business I was telling you about. We invest alongside our investors too. Yeah, it's great when they get their checks, we get our checks, everybody's happy.
Right.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's great. What sort of other things do you do to really help that investor, bring them along and get them to eventually invest in some of the deals that you're working on?
Yes, I would say it is a little bit more challenging nowadays just because there's a lot of fear in the news and in the economy. But it takes time. It takes time. A lot of for me, it's really putting out as much education as possible. I focus a lot on education, but I think that is the key component of raising capital is education. So a lot of proactive content. So I utilize LinkedIn specifically. So I write articles. I write about my personal experiences as an investor. I talk about trends, really being forefront about what's going on in the economy and really acting as a subject matter expert really helps you build credibility and trust. And so you're not just saying, oh my gosh, it's still rainbows and unicorns now, because it's not. If we're talking realistically, you can't say that this year is the same as last year or the year before in terms of economy. So when you're saying, yes, the market is shifting and setting those expectations for investors, really being honest and transparent, I think that makes a huge difference, because then the investors know that you are well educated in the economy of what's happening right now, of market trends, how that's impacting real estate, and they're coming to you and looking at you as the expert in the field. And so when you do have a deal, you're saying, I'm looking at XYZ components. We know that in the market, we're working against rising interest rates. Maybe this particular area has compressed cap rates and we're starting to see it kind of decompress a little bit. If you're communicating these things with investors, a lot of times they'll glaze over. They don't know the full details or the technicalities, but at least they are trusting you that you know the technicalities. And if they trust you, then they will know that they're coming into a good deal. Yeah. So for us, we've slowed down significantly in our deal flow. We don't have a lot of deals. We don't have as many deals as last year or the year before. But we're just saying, we understand the current market and the economy where it is. We are being extra conservative with how we are looking at deals. We are even looking at diversifying into other asset classes for XYZ reasons. And just kind of keep nurturing them and keep the communication channels open and say, we're working on it. Even issuing out webinars. We like to do monthly webinars to talk about things that we see, or bringing on special guests to talk about specific topics. I think these are great ways to continue nurturing investors and to keep them with you on the journey, because it's really easy for them to fall away. I feel like when you go quiet, they're going to be like, oh, they're probably not doing a whole lot anymore, so I'm going to go find something else, or look, they're going to turn their attentions away, because as an LP, I feel like it's not their main focus. They're passive investors. So if you're not staying front and center with them, they're going to fall away and find something else to focus on. So for us, that's kind of how we continue to keep the engagement and the conversation going with our investors.
You brought up something that's also worth mentioning too, is that when we're talking about core competency, the management of the investor management, right, is absolutely critical. Managing the communication, keeping the lines of communication open, always being available for that investor. So the reason why I bring that up is for anyone out there that is thinking about what's in their wheelhouse, having an aptitude of service for the investors becomes key, right? I think it takes a special type of personality to do that, right? If you don't have that personality, you have to bring someone on that can do it, because it's super, super, super important. Because you could be doing awesome with the deal, but if you're not communicating it to your investors think that they have no idea what's going on, and
Right.
those investors are always the ones that I guess in your world, you can tell me if this is wrong, they keep on investing with you. If you keep the lines of communication open, even if things are not going so well, you're communicating with them. They're like, you know what, Christine let us know about X, Y, Z, and I trust her judgment. Here's an extra $100,000 for the next deal. Because
Right.
I mean, is that generally how you're seeing, and how do you invest, or how do you manage your investors?
Yes, absolutely. It is always 100% about communication and how you're communicating the information. So it has to be succinct, concise, and also has to come early. Like if it's at the very last minute and they're like, well, why didn't you tell me about this earlier? You've got a problem there. We're seeing a lot of, operators going into foreclosure. They're not even communicating that to their investors until like the day before the judgment, right? And so that's an issue. You have to be, I think the earlier, not too early, of course, you don't want to cause too much alarm, but the right moment to communicate with the investors is extremely critical so that they know what's going on and having a solution as well. So not just telling them there's issues or whatever it is, if it's good or bad, but saying, what the outcome is or what you're projecting or what you're kind of working towards. It's not going to always be 100%, but at least if you have a plan and a goal, I think that's where the investors will really fully trust you with the transparency of your communication with them.
Yeah. How often are you communicating with your investors these days?
So we try to communicate at least once a month or once a quarter. So there's many points of communication when it comes to, I mentioned the webinars. That's a point of communication from a more general term of what's going on in the marketplace. We try to do that once a month. We have live webinars. People can call in, they can ask questions. And it's just, a time for them to see us, because it's not just a newsletter with words, they can see us. We started doing this year with our entire portfolio. We are doing quarterly webinars, state of the portfolio. So we do issue out updates and text newsletters for the properties that we work on. But I think having the FaceTime, the voice, and also the live session really helps. We want to be proactive with communication. We don't want them to feel like, they have to come to us. We want to say our door is open, we're available. Because a lot of times, and I'm feeling this from conversations, they're like, oh, you're too busy. I don't want to bother you. So I have a question, but I'm not going to ask you, kind of thing. And it just gets thrown by the wayside. So having those moments of like an open door, open office hours kind of thing, where we talk about the deals, we talk about the updates, we provide graphics to tell the story. Because a lot of newer investors, they look at the updates, they see the financials, they have no idea what they're looking at. And when it's too many words on the page, again, they glaze over.
They glaze over, yeah.
Yes.
That's right.
So we're putting like nice graphics that's easily digestible, that tells the story of the property in the given time. That really helps with the communication. So we do it that way too. We also check in, we send texts, emails, we do phone calls, every now and then, maybe once a quarter, to say, hey, how are you doing? And even just develop a relationship there. So it's not all about the asset or investing. It's even investing in their personal life and really getting to know them and having them get to know us as well. So many points of communication from our side.
And when you're doing the state of the portfolio type scenario, you're not going down to the individual asset level then, right? Because you might have 4 investors that are invested in 4 different deals. Investor A may not care or or want to hear about investor D's portfolio deal,
Right.
So how do you handle that part?
So it kind of depends. We're still, I would say we're still a little bit smaller, where our portfolio is not extremely vast. So the first session that we did open it up We have time slots to say when we're going to be talking about each property. And people can do something else or call in their time. But we also, a lot of our investors invest in multiple deals. So I think we're still pretty small in terms of our group of vested investors, and we want to keep it like a community. So we actually opened up the access for them to get a high level understanding of what's going on in the other properties as well. Because I think in some ways, and it doesn't work if you have, thousands and thousands of investors, you want to keep it very focused to the property they invest in. But for us, because we're still kind of running a little bit smaller operations, it's nice for them to see what's going on in the other properties. Because you might have one property that's not doing as well and one that's doing fabulous. It's for us, we feel like it's good to have that transparency to say, not every deal is 100% like a home run. There are some deals that are not doing as well for XYZ reasons, and explaining that. So really having them know and have the full transparency. This is for our circumstances. I wouldn't say this applies to all circumstances, but it definitely helps. I think it builds the trust even more.
Yeah. Well, one thing that we're planning on doing on the net lease portfolio anyway is almost running it like a publicly traded business, right? And in the green room, we're talking about eventually possibly taking it public one day. We're not sure. We don't know, right? But if you start setting up those processes today, then it kind of gets you accustomed to actually doing the whole dog and pony show with talking about the financials and then taking Q&A from, typically right now it's banks that are investing in a stock, but in our case it'd be investors investing in a blind pool fund, right? With the same sort of question. So to do that same sort of thing, for us it take a while because we have a lot of deals, right? And there's a lot of investors invested in a lot of deals, and we're spending like 3 days doing these phone calls. But to your point, though, I think it's absolutely critical to maintain those lines of communication open. You have to.
Right.
Yeah. Do you use any special software or anything else like that to help manage all that, or are you doing like all this on Excel spreadsheets and stuff?
Oh no. So we manage our investor base through our CRM, and we use Active Campaign for that. For our deals, I would say that one's a little bit more like spreadsheet focused. But we also have different data graphics that show the performance of financials through that. And then what else do we use? Yeah, I think that's kind of the key components. Because again, we're not huge. We don't have a huge portfolio. We have it's more compact and more boutique. And that's kind of how we run. Yeah.
No, hey, listen, I think the nail on the head here is that you have to maintain those lines of communication open. And I like the way you're doing it is that you're at least having a monthly touch point of being visible in front of the investors, right? There's some GPs out there that the investor invested in the deal, and it's like they never hear from them until something goes sideways in some cases, right? Or maybe it's on a quarterly basis, which isn't bad, but I mean that's fine. But it's even better if you're out there every single day on the internet talking about stuff. That's what I do. I'm on the internet every single day. I'm not talking about that specific deal, but I am on the internet talking about real estate. So our investors can always find me. They know I'm out there. They know we're active, and I'm doing deals, right? So, but talking about the deal at least once a month to the investor pool is awesome. Yeah, that's great. That's really good. That's really good.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know a lot of operators and operator groups, they don't have time to do this. So I think it is very important to bring someone onto the team that is dedicated to this.
Yeah.
Investor relations and communications is a key component, as you have mentioned prior, to a successful investing business and group.
Yeah. Well, I think it's because many operators look at the FTE, the full-time employee, as a cost, and it's actually not. It's a revenue generator. It's a sales role. And what I mean is that if that person's doing their job properly, they should be pulling in money as well.
Absolutely.
Right, to your point, like if that person was making the outbound call, going just like it isn't like they're busy every single day or at least not busy enough anyway, they can call through like five investors a day and just do a check-in. How are you? How are you doing? Hey, by the way, we have a new deal that's coming up on the portal. You should really check it out. Shake them down for some cash and get them to invest in the next deal. If they're happy with what's going on and they're happy with the line of communication, that FTE, that full-time employee, is actually generating cash. They're bringing money into the door, right?
Absolutely.
And there's different ways of handling that. That's huge.
Right. And if you're creating an optimal experience for the investor, they're going to tell everyone about it too, everyone around them. So referrals are the best type of lead because they will convert immediately. So if you have one happy investor who tells all their friends and family about you, you've got a whole herd of other investors coming with them. So it is, as you said, definitely a revenue generator. And that's, I've seen a lot of very successful groups grow exponentially based on this. So really fostering and putting emphasis on the investor experience.
Absolutely critical. Absolutely critical. Great. Well, we talked a little bit about, obviously, about raising money and some of the importance of hitting the communication aspect, which I think is absolutely key to this. What sort of bulletproof advice would you offer to somebody who is thinking about getting into the capital raising space?
Yes. So I would say definitely networking is key. So for me, it's not just networking with investors, it is also networking with other operators and investors, and us other capital raisers as well, because in our world of syndications, I feel like, yes, it could be competitive, but it is also a small world. Everyone eventually could partner with one another. And if you have friends in this business, your butt will be saved, right? Because you might have a deal that doesn't work for you and you're in trouble, but you have a friend who's an investor who knows what to do in that situation, who can come and help you save the day. Also, you're learning best practices from one another. If you're seeing someone else do something that's, really great to implement, or if you're doing something really great, share that knowledge. Because I feel like real estate is a giving community. And we're all about value add, right? We bring value to properties, we bring value to each other as well. And that's how we build wealth, because wealth is best grown together as a community, as a group. So I would say my biggest, advice is to keep that in mind, is to bring value to others as much as you can, be giving and sharing, the go-giver mentality, and network. Don't be afraid to meet others. They could be your competitor or they could be your partner. But, focus on them being your partner at the end of the day. It doesn't matter if they are the competitor, because at the end of the day, even if they are your competitor, you could always work with them. Yeah. We're always acquiring more and more deals.
Love it. Lead with value. Always lead with value. That's what I tell Absolutely. People. Yes. I've been to so many of these meetups where the first thing they say is, "Hi, Christine. My name's Augustino. Here's what I want." And it's like, instead of saying, "Hi, Christine, I'm Augustino. What do you need?" If you lead with that, making the other person to find out what they need and how you can help them, that way you always win. You always win, because nobody wants to help you. Just know that. Nobody wants to help, and that's okay. Just listen. As long as you understand what the rules of the road are, you'll be fine. And it's always lead with value. That's my motto anyway when it comes to this stuff in this business.
Right.
Well, very good. All right, guys. Well, if you want to reach out to Christine, you can reach her via the website, her company website at noblivest.com. Again, we'll include a link in the description. Thanks for tuning in. Hopefully you got some good insight on the investor management component of capital raising. Absolutely critical. You got to have that nailed down in order to keep that investor happy and also investing in future deals. All right. Thanks for tuning in, guys. See you next episode.
You've been listening to the Bulletproof Cash Flow Show. We hope you've enjoyed the show. We know we had fun. Make sure to visit our Apple Podcast page and leave us a 5-star review. We hope you've gotten some useful and practical information from the show. For real estate coaching, events, and resources, hit up bulletproofcashflow.com. Till next time.
No information in this episode should be considered specific, personal, or professional advice. Any investment opportunities mentioned on this show are limited to accredited or sophisticated investors. Any investments will only be made with proper disclosure and subscription documentation and subject to all applicable laws. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, real estate, financial, or business professional for individualized advice.